Hey guys, I was hoping my next Skylark video was going to be driving the Skylark somewhere on a road trip, hopefully, ultimately out to the farm. That'd be a good road trip actually. But after I replaced the output shaft seal on the transmission and drove it around, it was still leaking transmission fluid. I thought it was coming out of the output shaft seal, and I think it is still a little bit, so I'm not sure if I did a good job on that. Maybe I didn't seat it right. So I might pull the drive shaft off and try to seat that a little better, or maybe put a new one in. Even though they're $8. I hate to waste $8, but it also seems like there's fluid coming out of where the speedometer cable goes into the transmission housing. And I tried to tighten it down. I don't think it's a tighten down kind of thing, so I got to figure out how that works. He gave me some parts, speedometer Buick. So then I was like, well, maybe there was an issue with that, and he knew about it, or someone knew about it. It looks like it got replaced. So it's got the old gear in there and everything, but so maybe it's an O-ring, I don't know. I gotta look and see if I can get that fixed. And then I'm also going to go ahead and replace the intake manifold gasket like I've been talking about, and I'm going to, I didn't want to rebuild the carburetor here just because my garage is such a mess, but if I can get the transmission fluid to stop leaking and I can drive it around a little bit, then I can clean my garage out and organize it, and then I'll go over to the workbench and I'll have a good place to rebuild that carburetor. I think if I do those 3+ things, I think she'll go out to the farm. Can't think of anything else that would need to be done. So besides like getting the headliner up so it doesn't inhibit me driving, and in the back seat, just want to try and put something over the back of that so the stuff doesn't blow up as I'm driving. That's what this video is going to be, so buckle in, strap in, buckle up. I don't know. So I'm back under the Skylark and I'm trying to figure out, I'm still leaking transmission fluid, and I already wiped it off, but there was transmission fluid on this cable, and I think it's just coming from the fitting where the speedometer goes into the transmission. So I'm going to try and take that collar off and see if I can figure out what's going on. And then it's also still leaking at the U-joint, which I also wiped off. So I don't know if my seal failed, but I think it's coming from inside of the yoke where the bolt goes in. So I think I might need to go and take that yoke out and put some thread locker or something on that bolt, because I think that fluid's finding its way through that bolt. Upon further investigation, I don't think there's a cable running from the speedometer down to the transmission. So he gave me this little bucket of parts, and it's got like 3 speedometer cables in it, and it had a couple gears. This one looks worn down because the teeth are all flat, and then an O-ring and whatever that is. So I'm gonna go ahead and get back under here, and I'm gonna pull the cable off here. There's no cable in there. Pull this clip off. So I just came out to see if I could get under this car and see if it had that speedometer driven gear sleeve that I need. And I can't really get under it, so I'm going to go talk to the owner and see if he'll help me get to it, or if I can even have him lift it up for me or something. He might not want me to even mess with it. He might want to just sell the transmission whole, but He's got a couple old Venturas too. Pretty cool. So I was getting ready to leave and saw the Sabre, and it seems like it's got the same 2-speed transmission. And I looked under to see if there was a transmission, and it's got the speedometer cable hanging down with the driven gear. So I'm going to try to get this off. I don't know if I'm going to be able to. It actually looks like mine, but it's a little different. Huh. I got it off. So back in Denver working on the Skylark, trying to get it so I can drive it out to the farm. I feel like I've spent 100 days trying to get this driven gear sleeve back in the car. This is the one I pulled out of the LeSabre at the junkyard, and this is what it should look like, minus the fact that it's too long. It's got this clip in the holding the gear in, which I have no idea how to get that out. I got to figure that out. It might just be pressed. It's obviously too long. I think that's, well, I didn't even count. That's probably the 19 tooth gear that I need. This is the one that I got with the car in a bucket. The gears are smashed. So I think what happened was, well, it broke for whatever reason. And it actually fits in there pretty nice, these two pieces. Shouldn't do this because it's hard to get it back out, but so see, that looks pretty good. And then I would have to get that little, I had this, I have no idea what it is, but that came with it. It's too big to fit in there, so we need some kind of little clip that goes in there. So my plan, I went to the hardware store today. The hardware store doesn't typically have what you need, but I was just trying to find, I'm trying to make it so that I can get this back in the car and I can put the speedometer cable back on. It's not going to work. I mean, my speedometer is not going to work, but at least I can drive the car. I bought these little kind of threaded bushings and this screw or this bolt. So let me get this guy back out of here. And I'll show you what my plan is just to do. So you can kind of see there's brass threads inside of this rubber bushing. So I put that there, put this guy in there, and then I'm screwing this in. And I'm hoping that will seal the hole so that I can put transmission fluid back in and just drive the car until I can get back. I think what I'm going to do is try to get back down to Pueblo and either buy that Skylark or buy the transmission out of that Skylark. I mean, I should just buy the transmission, then I have a spare transmission. If he'll sell me the transmission for a couple $100, I'll do that. Otherwise, I want to just lift the car up out of the dirt and get underneath and try to pull this sleeve out of the transmission. So that's kind of what I have going on. I think that's going to work for me, but there's only 3 ways to find out. And then I also bought a new O-ring. Hopefully that O-ring's not too fat. And with that, I wasn't actually trying to rhyme with fat. It just did. I'm going to put that back in. So and then this goes behind here like this. And then this goes in here. That just bolts back onto the transmission. I guess it kind of goes, is this supposed to go? That sure fits in there nice. See, I wonder if I 180'd this guy, put that in that slot, maybe that's what that slot's for, but he's got it on the other side. Huh. I don't know. I'm going to try to put it back in the way I got it out first. Just a little info on this thing. I've been on Buick forums and stuff, and no one really has a lot of experience with these transmissions. It is what Buick calls a Dual Path Turbine Drive, and they were only in the 61 through 63 Skylark and Special. So the LeSabre, all the other Buicks, they didn't have it. This is a 2-speed. It's not it's a Dual Path Turbine Drive. It's not a Power Glide. It's not a whatever the other Buick transmission is. I think what the other Buick transmission is what was in that LeSabre, and I think that's what this is. That would have been beautiful if this would have worked. Although with that corrosion on there, I don't know if it would have worked. I ended up trimming this rubber piece down a little bit because I just figured if I get that up into that gear, it's just going to eat that rubber off, and then I'm going to have little pieces of rubber all over the transmission, and that's not what you want inside your transmission. I think I'm going to go for it. I'm going to try to put this on this side so that I could have this little piece in there. So it'll be on there like that. But when I get that on there, it doesn't really leave room. So I almost think this is not the right. I think that should just slide on there. It's like too tight. I don't know what the guy. Again, once I get down to Pueblo and I can pull that one out of that other car, if I can find another. I'm looking for another Skylark at another junkyard up here in Denver. And if anyone's a Skylark fanatic and they understand what's going on with this stuff, boy, I would sure love you to reach out to me and tell me what the heck to do, because I'm not learning here. Hey. That's all I can do. That's all I can do. I'm going to start it up, and I'm hoping that I don't hear any crazy grinding noises. I might start it up while it's on jack stands, put it into gear, and then I can climb back under here and kind of listen to it. I just want to make sure that the transmission gear isn't grinding on the bullet. Actually, before I lower the car down, I'm gonna try to figure out why it's leaking out of this yoke. Anyways, that's it for tonight. I'm going to bed. See you guys tomorrow. So I got the speedometer stuff all put back together, and then I have removed the drive shaft and slip yoke again because it was still leaking fluid from, it was not leaking from the seal, so I think my seal replacement was successful. I'm not sure if there's a bushing in there or not. I wanted to replace the bushing too, but everything I look up, the bushing was for manual transmissions. But for some reason, fluid's coming out. You can see around like the edge here. Looks like it's holding fluid because I dry it off and then it gets wet again. And it's one of those things that's confusing the crap out of me, which is not hard to do, but so kind of rooting around in there with this dental tool. There's a gasket, I think, like an old gasket. My first thought was actually to go try and find a little O-ring to put in there. I think maybe that's what I'm going to try to do, because I think that little plate is supposed to butt up to the output shaft, and then I put a bolt in there that tightens it down, and that way fluid can't come through here and then out, I guess. Howdy folks. It's been a little while. Winter kind of hit me hard and unexpectedly, and I'm getting a lot of snow early this year, so it's just made me unmotivated to come out in the garage. It's also trying to get some trim work done in our house in Denver that I've been putting off for like 7 years, and so I just wanted to get this trim cut and put up. And so now I'm kind of back into the Buick, and I went to the Ace Hardware, decided not to go the O-ring route, and I'm just going to use some silicone. And then I got a somewhere this little O-ring. I guess I'm going the O-ring, but it's more of a gasket, I guess. Again, it's just weird that this plate is kind of, it's actually loose in there. So I'm not familiar with yokes enough to understand why there would be this plate there, but that's what I've got. And I'm going to trim this a little bit to fit in there, and I'm going to first run a little bead around the outside of the splines, or the inside of the splines, I guess, and then put that in there, and then smush it back on after it sets up back onto the output shaft. So if nothing else, it'll definitely slow the leak until I can figure out how to work on cars. I am going to try to go and take some classes on general automotive repair. So that's where I am at today. That's perfectly round. Look at that. Like a machine did it. Like a surgeon. Uh-oh. The applicator. Yeah, it doesn't quite reach. That's what I was hoping. I gotta lower the back down. Shit, I forgot about that. That's perfect. I don't know what just fell out. Hope it wasn't needle bearings. Thinking I'm going to be replacing this U-joint soon. So I've kind of got everything put back together underneath, and my plan, although I don't like having a plan, is to start the car and let it run in gear for a little bit. Then I'm going to pull it back out and see if the transmission gear is rubbing against that rubber grommet that I put in there. And then if it's not, I'll put it back in. I'm going to fill it with transmission fluid, fill it all the way up with transmission fluid, and then what was my plan? Oh yeah. And then put it into gear, run it a little bit and see if it leaks, which 90% certain that it will. And if it's something I can fix without putting the car on the ground, I will attempt to fix it again. If not, I'm just gonna drive it and let it leak transmission fluid all over. You know, you see those dribbles all along the streets, and I think that's mostly from same situation I'm having, transmission dribbles. Hoping it will not leak. For some reason I can't get the car to start without a little bit of help. I actually hear a little grinding noise somewhere. I'm not sure why it sounded like that. I'm thinking I might have put the drive shaft back on wrong. So maybe a new problem to figure out here, but so I'm going to shut it off and I'm going to pull that bullet out and just see if there's any effect. Looks good in there. Well, there's low fluid in the transmission, so I don't know how to test this. If I fill the transmission up, then I pull this out, that drains the transmission. So I think the reason that the drive shaft was making all that noise is because I've got the differential down so low because it's up on jack stand. So I'm going to put this back in, and then I'm going to set the car back on the ground, start it up, top off the transmission fluid, and then see what happens. So I got it on, I just used this little tab and put it in that notch. And I think it's gonna hold. Well, we're gonna find out. Okay, I'll work on tightening that up a little bit, and then we'll start it up and put some fluid in it. How's that sound? So I am going to hold off on doing the carb rebuild and intake manifold gasket because I think I have enough here just to get a video out, and seems like a good segment. So I'm going to try and see how this thing starts without any starting fluid, and then I'm going to take it for a drive. Wow. Started right up.
Nice view.
Thank you. Well, she's running pretty good. So next things I got to do are, I got to get that speedometer cable hooked back up, and I am going to rebuild the carburetor because it's running really rich, and I think the jets are maybe too big. And I think I still do want to do the intake manifold gasket. Beyond that, it's just all the, what I like to call the fun stuff, but you got to figure out how to get the headliner repaired or replaced. Just got to clean the interior up a little bit, and I think the seat needs to be bolted down. I think there might be a blown fuse, but for some reason the radio doesn't work. The fuel sending unit doesn't seem to be working. Obviously the speedometer doesn't work, but that's because there's no cable. I'm not sure if the brake works, the e-brake, and I'm going to, brakes work actually pretty good considering. So, but I will pull the wheels off and look at the brakes. And then what am I going to do with the body? I'm thinking I want to paint it because as much as I like this car, I really don't like this color. So I'm thinking it'd look nice blue, but I hate to take, you know, I'm all about leaving it original, and I like that it is original. If I could get this body work done on this fender, maybe replace that fender, do a little bit on the front. There's a couple other dings on it, nothing too bad. Get the bumper straightened out and maybe give it a paint job. I don't know. So probably next video on this car is going to be rebuilding the carburetor and intake manifold gasket. After that, just kind of cleaning stuff up and enjoying it. So thank you guys for watching this. Hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you soon. Everything's looking pretty dry. That's awesome.